Syracuse football goes into Death Valley. They beat the Clemson Tigers 34-21. Their quarterback is injured. And at the time of this recording, we do not know the severity of the injury or how long he will be out for. For Syracuse, here is the good news. You are now 3-1. We talked all throughout the off season how quote unquote difficult this schedule was going to be for Syracuse. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's now easy for Syracuse. Easy schedule now. That's not what I am doing. Absolutely not. There are still some very, very tough tests on the schedule for Syracuse that hopefully they can rise to the challenge just like they did this Saturday against Clemson. Right? You still got to go to Notre Dame. You still got at Miami. I know SMU lost, but that won't be easy on the road. Of course, Georgia Tech looks like a really good team. You're going to have to go to the road to beat them, and you can never discount ACC opponents at home. But right now, you're Syracuse football. Steal is not the right word because they didn't steal this game. They flat out earned this win, and they flat out beat down the Clemson Tigers. I'm sure it's not going to be very nice in Clemson land following this performance. That's all I'll say on that. Maybe you'll hear more of my thoughts on ACC squad this upcoming week. But for Syracuse, you're 3-1. You just won a game on the road. You won a game on the road. What does that mean if you are Syracuse football? Maybe they could contend in the ACC. Maybe they could. They're 1-0 in conference play. The loss to Tennessee does not matter with conference play. Would have mattered if you're talking about Syracuse in the college football playoff, but as far as potentially getting to an ACC title, doesn't matter that Syracuse lost to Tennessee. That's a game that you're allowed to lose. And they didn't even look that bad aside from the first quarter of that game. Wasn't that terrible? And Tennessee's a pretty good team, by the way. I don't know if you've ever seen them play before, but you know how they handled themselves against Georgia. Probably should have won that game, by the way. You're 3-1. You just won a game on the road. Now, if you're Syracuse football, all you got to do is win 3 more games to make a bowl. You don't have to win on the road for the rest of the season to make a bowl because they still have 4 more home games on the schedule. You win 3 out of 4, 6-6, which I'm not saying that. What I'm saying there is if you win 3 out of 4, at minimum, you are 6-6. You qualify for a bowl. Maybe they could contend in the ACC, but a lot of it's going to depend on their quarterback play, whether it's Rickie Collins, whether it's Steve Angeli, or who knows behind him. Maybe it's Luke Carney that has to be thrust into action at some point. And he's a true freshman. Who knows what's going to happen? But this is also why, after the UConn game, as bad as Syracuse played, why it was also a relief that they won. Even though they did not perform well, they won, and we're not in the business of throwing away victories. That's for sure. They count. No, it wasn't pretty. No, they did not play well. And if Syracuse plays like they did versus UConn versus pretty much any other opponent, aside from FCS teams, they would probably lose. They would. They'd probably lose. But they found a way to win that game. Maybe that game was the opposite of Stanford from 2024, where Syracuse should have beaten Stanford at home. And Syracuse was a really good team in 2024, but they lost that game. Could you imagine how much the season could have changed had they beaten Stanford at home? Could you imagine how much it could have changed the trajectory of where 2024 was going? Maybe they do sneak into the college football playoff had they beaten Stanford. Maybe they do. I bring that up again because the same thing could have happened with UConn this year, except they won it. They found a way to win. You're 3 wins away now from a bowl after stealing this one in Death Valley against Clemson. So the road ahead for Syracuse, a lot of it's going to depend on quarterback play. But assuming they can still get pretty decent quarterback play, they're set up to make a bowl. Just win 3 out of your final 4 home games of the season. Ta-da! bowl team despite a completely new roster, despite a very young roster, and think about the future of this program following a successful 2025 with the recruiting class that they have coming in, more investments probably into the team that could help them in the transfer portal as well. Players are probably going to want to come back to play for this team. Antoine Delorier, middle linebacker, absolute stud. Demetrius Samuel on the outside. Chris Peel still has eligibility. You could see not the finish line, but you could see where this program is potentially heading right now. And it's only week 4 of Fran Brown's first year as head coach. This makes no sense that this is happening with Syracuse football. No sense. I think Syracuse football got the Fran Brown hire right. And I know that's Captain Obvious, but I think they did.